it is time to continue our discussion on Greek mythology. So, let's do it. Last time we talked about how Gaia gave birth to Uranus and Pontus, and how together they populated the earth with all the first creatures. And then Uranus got his rear end kicked by his son, Cronus, who then became the supreme ruler of the cosmos. If you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend checking it out before continuing here, since this one will contain some spoilers for it. Cronus married his sister Rhea, who gave birth to the first of their children, the goddess of the hunt. Then she bore him the god of the sky, Atlas. Next came the goddess of the earth. We all know her as Gaia, but in this case, her name was simply Hera. Then he sired the youngest of the bunch, the god of the sea. Okay, but when Cronus saw that his youngest was also a male, he panicked because he had heard from his father, Uranus, that when he was eventually it would be at the hands of one of his sons. So, in order to avoid this prophecy, he swallowed each of his children as they were born. That's right, this dude ate his own kids. What kind of monster does that? A monster indeed. So now Rhea was worried because she was pregnant with their last child, another boy, and she knew that if Cronus swallowed him, then the prophecy would come true no matter what. She went to Cronus and begged him not to eat their last child, but he didn't listen and instead said, "I have sworn by the great oath of the Titans that I will swallow you, my children, whole." So now that they couldn't reason with him, Rhea and her sister Gaia came up with a plan. They tricked Cronus into swallowing a stone wrapped up in swaddling clothes instead of the baby. And as soon as they did, Cronus felt something wasn't right. He burped and said, "I feel like I have swallowed a stone." "Why have you tricked me?" Then Rhea replied, "This child is your last. Now go and check the bottom of the sea where the stone has fallen, so that its weight may be lifted from my womb." And as soon as he left, Rhea took the baby and hid him on the top of Mount Ot. Meanwhile, the baby grew up without knowing he was actually the son of Cronus, until he met his brother Typhon, who told him everything. And Cronus must have really been gullible because he believed them, even though they both had every reason to want him dead. Well, after hearing this, Zeus decided that he needed help if he was going to take over the cosmos, so he called up Gaia and asked her to make him weapons, so that he could take his rightful place as king. Gaia happily obliged. She created lightning bolts, which symbolized his power over the sky. Then she made him a sickle, which symbolized his power over the earth, and a trident, which symbolized his power over the sea. After receiving these gifts, Zeus freed his siblings from their imprisonment in Cronus's stomach. The brothers then waged war against the Titans, a war that would come to be known as the Titan. Zeus used his new weapons to great effect, shattering the mountains and throwing thunderbolts that struck terror into the hearts of the Titans. Even the Cyclopes and the Hecatonchires joined the fight on Zeus's side and helped him defeat the Titans. At this point, it seemed like the war was going poorly for the Titans, so Tithys and Okeanos tried to flee. but Zeus wouldn't allow. He grabbed Tethys and threw her into the river that bears her name, forever turning her into a goddess of the river. As for Okinos, he chased after him and forced him to encircle the whole earth 3 times before allowing him to escape. In the end, the Titans were utterly defeated and imprisoned deep within the earth. Only Cronus escaped with his life, fleeing to the distant east. There he settled down in the land of Phrygia and became a farmer. That, or maybe he was trying to get away from all the auto-cannibals. Now let's move on to the next section. The first word of advice goes, Cronus rules the cosmos. When Cronus swallowed his children, he became more powerful than he already was, gaining access to the powers of each child, but in a twisted sort of way. For example, he had control over the earth, but instead of being able to nurture life and grow crops, he caused earthquakes that devastated cities and split mountains apart. He could command the sea, but instead of summoning calm waves and gentle breezes, he whipped up storms that capsized ships and sent men to watery graves. He could heal the sick and wounded, but instead he inflicted diseases that withered flesh and broke bones. He had foresight into the future, but instead of using it to guide him and help others, he used it to cause misery and destruction. All of this shows that when you use your powers for evil, they are tainted and turned into their opposite. If you have the ability to bring light into people's lives, but choose darkness, then your power will become darkness. If you can create unsustained life, but choose death, then your power will become death. You are literally a living paradox. So, if you ever gain immense power, no matter what it is, remember that there is a fine line between good and evil. Make sure you don't cross it. Now, let's talk about the second lesson we learned from this episode, which is that Cronus wasn't always bad. In fact, he was originally pretty cool. He led the Titans to victory against the elder gods, overthrew his own father, and freed the universe from the endless cold of the void. His rule ushered in an age of enlightenment and prosperity. Under his reign, mankind reached the pinnacle of its development. It was a time of great peace and tranquility, exactly what the world needed after the chaos of the First Age. In short, Cronus brought order to the world. He wasn't always bad, but when he began acting out of fear, that's when everything went downhill for him. His fear turned him into a tyrant, causing him to commit atrocities against his own children and his own people. This shows us that when you let fear control you, it'll mess everything up for you. It'll turn you into someone you're not, and ruin everything you've worked for. So never let fear control you. Now, the last lesson we need to learn from this episode is to avoid YouTube policy and avoid your policy. When Cronus swallowed his children, he violated his own policy. He committed regicide, killing his own father and taking his place. Then he committed parricide, killing his own children and taking their places. And finally, he committed fratricide, killing his own siblings and taking their places. By doing this, he opened himself up to the possibility of being overthrown by one of his sons. Sure enough, Zeus came along and usurped his position, sending him and all the Titans to Tartarus. So sometimes when you break the natural order of things, it comes back to bite you. When you interfere with the natural balance of the universe, you disrupt the flow of things and cause chaos to ensue. Sometimes it's best just to go with the flow. Do not try to force things to happen your way, because chances are it won't work out for you. Just ask Cronus. Those are the lessons we need to learn from the story of Cronus. He ruled over an age of enlightenment and prosperity, but his fear of losing his power caused him to commit atrocities against his own children and his own people. He was a cautionary tale of what happens when you let fear control you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and come back soon.